And welcome back, everyone, to Magic. I haven't done a Magic video in a while, and while the D&D set Forgotten Realms spoilers did kind of start a while back with like the whole Tiamat thing, and then Lorth and all that, I'm like, no, I want to wait till like close to the actual spoilers to actually be talking about them. And since the spoilers, if I'm not mistaken, do start officially tomorrow, I figured today would be a good day to go over all the stuff that we have learned, and we've actually learned quite a bit. Obviously, I'm cued in here on these particular cards, the dungeon cards. So we have, obviously, Dungeons & Dragons. They had to figure out a way to do dungeons. And I like this. Basically, these are cards that just exist outside the game, similar to like a Commander. But even like Commander, you can still have dungeon cards. And I think what it is you do have a little bit of you do have like a mini deck, more or less. Because once you go through a dungeon, you then bring out a new dungeon. There's only 3 from what we can tell, at least so far. Maybe there are more. I think that they've said there's 3. And what basically happens is you immediately play this card, and you then have this card waiting, and then you have cards, and let's just find one of them right now. Nope. Give me one that, okay, here we go. When you find a card, like this card right here, Nadar, Selfless Paladin, when it enters the battlefield or attacks, you venture into the dungeon. So what that means is you enter the dungeon and then venturing and going to the next room in the dungeon. So with the case of the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, you would get 1 life, and then you'd get to scry 1, and then you get the choice of either going to Goblin's Bazaar or Twisted Caverns, and then get the corresponding abilities until you eventually get to the end of the dungeon and then exit the dungeon. If you look closely, I know this is a bit smaller on my screen, there's an opening at the top here where you enter, and an opening right here where you exit. And I think that's pretty fun. Like, I can see me, if I get a box of this, which maybe I will, maybe I won't. It all depends on what I see throughout the whole set. If I can see a dungeon deck being made. We know there's a Planeswalker that we'll talk about in a little bit that's specifically designed for the dungeons. That has a dungeon theme to it. And then obviously you have all the basic land. I do like the basic land is basically at the DM narrating. Like, looking at some of the force. As you venture deep under the brows of Neverwinter Wood, arrows in the tree trunk suggest you might not be welcome. Or then you can move on to, we venture deep into the heart of the mountain to determine what can calm its quaking rage, and so forth and so on. And I mean, honestly, these all look pretty good, like land-wise. I would admit that some of them do look more like they're just from a different plane from Magic. Like, honestly, this forest right here looks like it'd be out of either Mirrodin with the spikiness, or Zendikar, because it looks like a Hedron. This one, I'll admit, this one I couldn't really give you a feel on. This one, honestly, I get a bit of a Tarkir vibe out of it. I do like this, looks like the back of a dragon. Yeah, your path lies the spine of the world, like, world spine worm. This one looks like it would be from Ikoria, because it looks like it has the crystals. This one honestly looks like it's from Innistrad. This one, I'll be honest, this one looks, I'm trying to think where, because it does look like something. I want to say this one looks kind of like it's either from Kaldheim, or maybe like from Theros. And then obviously the plains, honestly, that looks kind of like Eldraine, to be frank. And that one looks like it'd be, I don't know, somewhere else. But yeah, we have a new form of Evolving Wilds. There's alternate art cards too, obviously. But no, a new form of Evolving Wilds. And then we actually get into the actual cards. Remember, we might get some reprints in this set, obviously, but that's just to fill in the spaces. Prosperous Innkeeper is 1 green, 1 main color. For a Halfling citizen, Halfling becomes an official creature type. When it enters the battlefield, you create a treasure token. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Short, sweet, simple, but honestly pretty good. I mean, you're playing it for 2, and you're automatically getting another mana. If you got a 1-drop, be it a creature or spell, in your hand, you could play it right then and there, or just basically be up on land for the next turn. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people saying this was the best card out of the lot that was spoiled, and I'd be hard-pressed to disagree with them. It's usually the uncommons that fill in the big gaps. Power Word Kill. I like the name of this card. 1 black, 1 main color, instant, uncommon. Destroy target non-angel, non-demon, non-devil, non-dragon creature. Which usually does make up the bulk of creatures, to be fair. Because all of those creatures, minus devil, tend to be either rare or mythic rare. Although they can be an uncommon. Most people don't run them specifically. So I see it being a pretty decent kill spell against the right opponent. Vorpal Sword. This was a big. This one got a big hoot when people saw it. 1 black, equipment rare. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and Death Touch. Equip it for 2 black. Pay 8, 3 black and 5 any color. Until end turn, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. An expensive ability, expensive effect to get off, but if you can get it off and just get one swing, it is worth it. I mean, even on its own, just bring it on the field turn 1, equip it for turn 3 or something like that. It's still very playable. It's a 2/2/0 and Death Touch for 2. That's playable on its own. Really, that big ability is just, sweetening the pot, if you will. Portal Hole. 1 white artifact uncommon. Enters the battlefield. Exile target non-permanent. A target non-land permanent an opponent controls with mana value 2 or less until a hole leaves the battlefield. Essentially, it's a not as good path to exile or Oblivion Ring, that kind of thing, because you now have to go with mana values of 2 or less. Now, admittedly, you got the Vorpal Sword. You could obviously target that. You could obviously target Prosperous Innkeeper. There are more cards we'll talk about that you could target, but I don't know. It's going to depend on whether and how many small threatening things your opponent has. Tiamat. Dragon God. Legendary Dragon God. Mythic. 1 of each color plus 2 extra mana. Flying 7/7. When she enters the battlefield, because Tiamat is she, if you cast it, search your library for up to 5 dragon cards not named Tiamat. Each have different names. Reel them and put them into your hand. I mean, look, it's a big, meaty monster dragon that brings out other dragons. Would it have been cooler if she, brought out the dragons, or at least a dragon? Yeah. Or if she died, the heads all became a dragon. That'd be cool, too. But, I mean, for once it is, for your dragon deck, she's going to search out your dragons. So, joy. That being said, if she's getting out, when she's getting out, earliest she could get out is maybe a turn 5. You've got a serious amount of mana ramp going. There's a chance you could have already a decent amount of dragons in your hand and you won't be able to get. Does it say up to? Yeah, I say up to. Okay, so it's not that bad, but I don't know. It's a fun splashy card, but even for me who loves these kind of cards, it doesn't really do anything besides being a 7/7 flyer. I mean, the dragons you still got to pay the mana for anyway, so I don't know. It's still fun. Brunor, Battlehammer. 1 white, 1 red, 2 of any color for a 5/3 dwarf warrior or legendary creature. Each creature you control gets +2/+0 for each equipment attached to it. You may pay 0 rather than pay the equipment cost of the first equipment you activate each turn. Which is actually, I mean, for the equipment deck, I have an equipment deck. It's pretty lousy, but I have an equipment deck. For an equipment deck, that's not anything to sniff on, because you're basically going to be getting pumped for all your equipment attached to creatures. And then you can equip your first equipment for free each turn. So actually, that's pretty good. Drizzt Urden, 1 white, 2 of any, 1 white, 1 green, 3 of any color for a 3/3 Elf Ranger, double strike. When it enters the battlefield, each create a Guinevere, legendary 4/1 green cat creature token with trample. Whenever a creature dies, if it had power greater than Drizzt's power, put a +1 counter on Drizzt equal to the difference. So in essence, what you're trying to get here is first off, it's a double striker, so that's great. Double striker for 3 is still a decent rate. You're getting a 4, you're getting 2 bodies, but it's only got a 1 toughness. So obviously, the cat, because the thing is, the cat is actually a familiar, so he can just resummon it if he needs to. He's basically creating a situation where he's going to become a 4/4 double striker, which is fine. Honestly, you're going to possibly want to try to get bigger creatures on the field than just the 4/1. If you can get at least a 5/5 or even something with a 6 power, and then that dies, now you have a creature that's actually poses a serious threat. But as it stands, I mean, Double Strike is still no joke of an ability. It doesn't get printed a lot, I think, because they know it's kind of broken in some ways, but it's also kind of sucks in some way. It's a very weird ability, Double Strike. But still, it's one of those that it's powerful and you don't want to mess with it unintentionally. Lolith, Spider Queen. 2 black, 3 van color for a legendary planeswalker, Lolith, starting loyalty 4. Whenever a creature you control dies, you put a loyalty counter on this card. Now, it does not have a actual loyalty ability. It does not have any plus abilities. It has pay 0, draw a card, and you lose 1 life. Or pay -3, create 2 black spider creature tokens with menace and reach. you get or -8, you get an emblem that whenever when an opponent deals combat damage, whenever an opponent is dealt combat damage by one or more of your creatures, if that player lost less than 8 life this turn, they lose life equal to the difference. In essence, what it's making you do is anytime one creature gets through, no matter what the damage is, the opponent's going to be losing 8 life. Now, I first saw this and thought, yeah, this is awesome, woo! And I look back on it, and I still think it's actually a good card. The only problem is it actually struggles to get to its actual ultimate because you need creatures to die. You don't have a sacrifice engine here. The only thing you can do is -3 to make 2 spiders, and even then you're down to 1 loyalty. At best, you go up to 3 loyalty, so you can activate that twice, and she's done. The fact that it doesn't have a plus is actually kind of a detriment to this. That said, however, in the right deck where you've got little tokens dying, because it doesn't say non-creature token, or non-token creature, I should say. It doesn't say that, so you can just have tokens die infinitely, and you're good to go. I can think of decks where this definitely, that I have, that definitely could find a home for this card. Definitely. So it's definitely got the potential. 5 is a bit much, especially for a no plus ability, but it still isn't bad. It's not bad. Flump. 1 white, 1 of any color for a 0/4 white jellyfish creature. Rare. Defender and flying. When it's dealt damage, you and target opponent each draw a card. I find it kind of adorable. Now, granted, it's not preventing the damage, so it's not going to be surviving serious hits past 4. And the 4 is a good butt. Don't get me wrong. But for instance, against Drizzt Do'Urden, it's going to die. Against Bruin Battlehammer, it's going to die. Against a couple other of these creatures, it's going to die. So it is what it is. And I thought yeah. It is what it is, but it's fine. It's not. I actually don't like it that much because it's also giving your opponent a card, which I'm not a big fan of. Unless it's like with Silverquill, the dragon. I can't remember its name right off the top of my head, but the dragon. Where that one, I get it. Of the 3 options, you'll give your opponent the card to lose a life and get a creature, or give +1 to everything on the field permanently. I get that. But in this case, like, why would you want your opponent to draw a card? I mean, yeah, you'll draw a card, but they're getting a card. I don't like that, quite frankly. Tasha's Hideous Laughter. The Raging Behir, which I can't wait to see what it be, because I've always loved Behirs. Behirs are cool. 2 blue, 1 of any color for a sorcery rare. Each opponent exiles cards from the top of the library until that player has exiled cards equal with a total mono value of 20 or more. As mill cards go, mill's kind of cheap and dirty, and it sucks for it to go up against them. But especially in arena, because some of the things people do are just not fair at all. Like and there's no originality behind it either. That's the thing. That's what bothers me more than just being constantly beaten by a mill deck. Is the fact in other decks is that there's no originality. Here's my little TED talk for the next minute. So go. I love playing Magic Arena, but the thing that pisses me off more than anything is the people who are just, I've seen a deck, seen the deck recipes, and just copied and pasted and altered slightly to make it so they're going to win all the time. Like, there's no originality in that. There's no fun to be had. There's none of that. Why is that enjoyable at all for anyone? They're the kind of people, basically, who can tell just want to win. They don't want to have, I'm sorry, I'm adjusting it slightly. They just want to win. They're not trying to have fun or anything like that. They're just doing it to win, and they don't care if, you're their, and then some of them have the nerve to say, I've had people who have completely whooped my ass without me ever getting a shot fired off on them. And doing like the Fang guy who gives poison, that gives basically poison to anyone with Death Touch, and completely kill me within like 3 turns, and just had the gall to actually say good game, like it's supposedly good sportsmanship after you have completely and utterly, beaten someone down. It's like, here's the problem. That's not a good game. That's not good. It's not good sportsmanship when you act, or you basically say, good game after you completely annihilate someone, not even giving them a freaking chance. Like, so, yeah, there's my TED Talk. Sorry about that. Anyway, moving on. Gloom Stalker. One, I like the Taisha hit his laughter, though. I pull that. I get that. I'm going to be using it. Gloom Stalker. 1 white, 2 of any color for a 2/3 Dwarf Ranger. As long as you've completed a dungeon, which goes back to the dungeon cards, this card has double strike. So, I mean, that's all well and good if you can get, you can complete a dungeon. There you go. Which obviously these are cards that have been designed for like the dungeon, basically. We'll talk about Elwick in a little bit, but Shortcut Secrets, the blue card's kind of cut off in the corner here. It's a 2/5, 4 mana, 1 blue. When it deals combat damage to a player, adventure into a dungeon. Well, just great, but I mean, like they're gonna let that go through. It's only 2 damage, but I don't know. That card seems not great. I mean, if it's just attack, first off, probably be more common, but if it's just attack, that's one thing. Obviously, like with Nadar's Selfless Paladin here, 1 white, 2 of any color for a 3/3. Dragon Knight legendary creature, Dragonborn, folks. Vigilance. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you venture into a dungeon. And other creatures you control get +1/+1 as long as you've completed a dungeon. So it can pump up the whole field. It's got Vigilance, a 3/3 for 3 with Vigilance, so it's usable even without the dungeon ability. But let's be honest, that's kind of the reason you play it, is for the dungeon ability. And as it stands, I mean, that's perfectly fine. Dungeon Crawler is 1 black, 2/1 zombie. Enters the battlefield tapped. Whenever you complete a dungeon, you may return this card from your graveyard to your hand. Not really my taste. Because we already have the card for that. That is the exact same thing without this. So I really don't see the actual need. But I mean, who knows? Maybe there is a reason. Then we have Cloister Gargoyle. 1 white, 2 of any color for a artifact creature gargoyle, 0/4. Enters the battlefield and venture into a dungeon. As long as you've completed a dungeon, it is +3/+0 and flying. Again, it's all under the idea that you're completing a dungeon. So if you completed the dungeon, great. Eliwick Tumblestrom. 2 green, 2 any color for a 4 loyalty planeswalker, Eliwick. +1, venture into the dungeon, which for the dungeon decks, this is your planeswalker to have. This is the card, because now you can just continually do it, adding on to the creatures and get through dungeons faster. -2, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a card from among them, or creature card from among them, and put them into their hand. If it's legendary, you gain 3 life. Put the rest on the bottom in any random order. -7, you get an emblem. Creatures you control have trample and haste, and get +2/+2 for each differently named dungeon you completed. So, I don't know. It's all, see, her ultimate, which usually you don't judge a planeswalker by its ultimate usually. It's all dependent on if you've completed a dungeon. If you've completed at least 1 dungeon, then, I mean, great, awesome. Because then all your creatures are getting at minimum like +2/+2 and trample and haste for the rest of the game. So all you gotta do is complete 1 dungeon. Obviously, what you hope for is to complete more dungeons. But the good thing is that you can get this emblem off, only complete the 1 dungeon, or not even complete a dungeon, complete dungeons, and then the ability gets stronger, the emblem gets stronger. As a whole, for the dungeon deck, sure, this is a good card. But that's kind of the problem, is that it's only for the dungeon deck. There's no real value past it. Its -2 is fine, but that's about it. So, because her -7, I mean, even without any dungeons, is only giving trample and haste to everything, which is still nothing to sneeze at. But really, if you don't have like an aggressive, like big creature or just an aggressive deck, it's not going to matter much. So yeah, great in the dungeon deck, pretty lousy outside of it, to be frank. I do like the art though; art's very nice. But that's all the Forgotten Realms creatures, or Forgotten Realms cards we've seen so far. The official spoilers start tomorrow, so we'll keep an eye out for that. Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. As always, if you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. Hit that bell if you want to be notified, and I'll catch you folks later.